You want to introduce yourself and kind of yeah, give like a one paragraph background on kind of what your career looks like or has looked like up till now.
Elevator pitch of myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Nikko Elliott. I used to be an accountant in a prior life, but I found it was more glorified data entry than anything else. But what I did like, there was about 10% of my job that was building Excel spreadsheets for different departments or different people that I worked with, and figuring those sheets out, figuring out the functions that needed to handle sometimes some fairly complex scenarios. And that's what I was motivated by. I would think about that when I left work more than anything else. And I started looking into, well, what could I do that would be more of that in my day-to-day life? And I knew someone that did a coding boot camp. So I started looking into coding. I learned how to code JavaScript, and I got a job as an implementation engineer with a company called Catalytic. It was not software engineering, but it was a lot of heavy JavaScript coding. And did that for 2 years, loved it, but the growth within the company was hindered by COVID. So I left, did an actual boot camp, and that pretty much brings us to where we're at today. I graduated last year, I did very well. I worked with them as a student instructor, and now I'm just trying to find my first software engineering job.
Well, congratulations on making it that far. Honestly, it's really tough to just stick with anything, and that really shows that your interest levels there, which is awesome. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I'll do this because it's a career there, it's like, but to actually have a passion for it, really enjoy it, because that is the day-to-day, is kind of what you talked about. Like, so if you enjoy that, you're in a really good situation. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do sort of like a really weird hybrid interview thing. It's going to be a little bit of full stack because I'm actually going to do some system design questions. But then what I might do is actually, we're going to be writing code, but then maybe, ask you some product specific questions to kind of touch base on some of your, other experience. And because the whole thing is really useful, I think, especially the higher up in the career you go in any field, the more integrated it becomes with all these different things. So let's just kind of start out with like, let's start with some code. Let's get it out of the way. Let's get it out of the way. Okay. No one likes the code thing. I've never liked coding things. So we'll get that out of the way. It seems like you've had a lot of experience with JavaScript. So whatever's easiest for you, whether you have like an IDE that you like to use, or I can send you a code pin. What's your preference?
Why don't you send me a code pin?
Yeah, the first thing is, and we'll do is pure JavaScript, or whatever language you're comfortable with. It sounds like JavaScript's the go-to there.
Yeah.
So let me just kind of walk you through this. This is pretty common problem, and this was a really fun one because there's like 50 ways of doing it, but all of them have their challenges. So basically, I want you to write a function that basically, I give you this string characters. You don't know what they are. You're going to do this very strange looking thing here. I'm actually going to give you I'm also going to give you the number of rows. So there'll be, in this case, 3 rows.
Yep.
And then you're going to put it in this weird format, and I'll walk you through that in a little bit. And then you're basically going to print out the rows, so JRIRPOG, and that's what you see here. So basically, you take this sentence and you break it into this many rows. But if you notice, it's actually going down vertically. So JPMORGAN. So it's doing the zigzag. So down the diagonal, down and diagonal, kind of this tooth pattern there. And then you just print that out. So in here, and then again, I give you arbitrary number of rows. That's the tricky bit, because if you said it's just 3, okay, but this is actually arbitrary. So I could give you, for example, that was the number 3, but 4 rows would look like that. Yep. And of course, if I give you 1 row, it's just going to be the same output as is, and then, that's what the signature could look like, but you can make it look like whatever.
Right.
But yeah, does that make sense?
It makes sense, yes. And I have to tell you, I have seen this one before, so I do understand it. But I do not remember how to solve it.
I'm with you there. That's been me every time I've done an interview. I'm like, I've seen it. At some point, I've memorized this. I don't have it anymore. So this will be good, because at least you understand it, and so that way we can kind of just rediscover the answer together. So I'll stop sharing, and feel free to share, and then we'll just kind of like we'll figure it out together, and we'll just kind of see where things go.
Host has disabled participant sharing.
That's right. How dare you? There you go. Try that now. Every time I forget to enable that.
All right. All right, so let's see here. I'll go like this. So I like to do a little thing that they taught us in my boot camp to think through these problems. And we got input, output, constraints, edge cases. Input is a string and a integer, which is a number of rows. Output is a string representing like the diagonal. I don't know how to word it exactly, but like representing the diagonal adjusted string, I guess is how I can put it. Yeah. And constraints, it really varies on constraints. You've not stated any in terms of like, I can't use this or that. So I'm going to put none for now. And all right, save. And I didn't know it would like completely change everything. And then edge cases, I suppose I could have like an empty string or int of 0.
Yeah, and I'll put this in as a constraint. The int will be non-zero.
Okay, so I'll take out that edge case.
Or I guess that's a constraint. Yeah, we'll say it's a constraint.
Constraint.
Yeah.
Good. Why not? Int is greater than 0. So okay. So my initial thought is that there's potentially some math, like some like way to approach it mathematically, where however many rows you have is however many letters forward you're going to go through. You're going to go like you're always going to start with whatever that first letter is. So example string like JP Morgan is hiring, right? I'll just use that example that was given. And int of 3, excuse me. And if I remember correctly, the output was something like.
Yeah, and you can paste. I put it in Zoom if you want to paste the output.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh, you can copy and paste out of Zoom, can you?
I think.
Or it depends. Oh, you've enabled it, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been in a ton, at least in my boot camp, the Zoom that they had set up, you could like almost never copy and paste. So I kind of got used to like.
I know, it's like super locked down. Yeah.
I don't even know why they did that either. But all right, so then the output is this. All right, so then it's going to go from J and then 1, 2, 3 R, 1, 2, 3 I, 1, 2, 3 R, 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to start over at the P, but then it's O next, and then G next. And so then it's like jumping by 1, but like that's not necessarily always going to be the same. The first time through it, like it jumps by 3s, and then it's jumping by 1s. And then the last one, let me see, N, S, I, G, and then it comes back to the M. 1, 2, 3, A, 1, 2, 3, H, 1, 2, 3, N. Yeah, so it's like 3, 1, and 3, but that's probably just specific to 3. So I wonder if there's a pattern. I'm looking for a pattern here. I don't know if one exists. I'm sure, well, I should say there probably is some sort of pattern, but can I suss it out the way I'm trying to suss it out? I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah, you're right to look for a pattern.
Okay, great. And then the output on this one was, although like without even doing that, I could have just immediately said 1, 2, 3, 4. See, but this one jumps 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. J. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so wait, did I do that right? Man, why am I? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's an A. Then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, I. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I wonder. So why is it 5 that first one? If it was 4, the next two.
I'll give you a little of a hint just to kind of point you in the right direction. So.
Please.
What I would, because you're spot on for looking for that type of pattern. You scroll down to like the visual representation.
Yes.
My little hint would be is take the spaces out of that visual representation, like or just one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that one on 19, 20, and 21. Just take out the gaps between the well, you can just take out the gaps in those 3 lines. And think of it like, okay, these are maybe 3 rows of information. Now looking at the pattern from here, maybe use this to look for patterns.
Yeah.
So that would be my hint. You already are looking for patterns, but use that particular, the spaced free version to also look for patterns. And I think you'll find a more useful pattern in that.
All right, well, let me take it out of here too. Ah. Sorry, so it's 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where I'm lost on that pattern there.
Yeah, so look at the input and then look at 36 through 39 and just kind of follow the letters through 36 through 39. So J, P, M. So what is the kind of the path the next letter takes? Like what's the pattern of the placement of the blocks?
Oh, right. So it's 1, 2. There's. I guess I don't know what you mean exactly. Like the placement of, like it's, I know that there's 4 rows, right? But what do you mean the placement of the blocks?
Yeah, so like I would just say, and I'm hoping I broke that up right. Now I'm kind of looking at it. I am concerned that I even broke it up wrong. But basically think of, okay, if I'm just going down the letter and these are each, rows, knowing where the last letter went, could I predict where knowing where the last letter went, can I predict where the next letter is going to go?
Knowing where the last letter, meaning
I know where J goes.
Yeah.
Can I predict where P is going to go?
Oh, right. Yeah. And here it's, you're going to be, obviously P is going to be, if you didn't have that at all, it would be the third one.
Well, I would still think of them as separate rows.
Okay.
So like if J is in, the first of the first, then presumably the second one is going to be the first of the second, right?
Right.
And you go all the way down to O, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be obviously the next one on the row above me. If that makes any sense. So if I know where O is,
yes.
I might be able to place pretty confidently where R is going to be.
Yes,
I could also be just making things worse in your brain. So I'll
No. That actually really helped me out. I mean, it's giving me an idea for like a way to go about it that I don't know is necessarily the best way to go about it, right? But potentially like a brute force way to go about it based on what you were just saying. So yeah, so it's like J, P, O, then jump up R, G, A, and then it's going to go down to N. You're kind of like just go like, well, I mean, obviously you're going up and down, right? Where did the S go? Hold on.
Yeah, I think I may have broken those up incorrectly for you there, but you know the pattern, so I think 36 through 39, I may be kind of slightly, because it's doing like a weird tail at the end, but it really should be consistent the whole way.
Like this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
I think that would actually be there. Well, I don't want to mess it up too much.
Yeah, but
there should be an S here though, I think, because it would be
MOR. Yeah, there you go.
And then it would be H, I, and then this would be R. Yeah. Higher.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I think that was my problem there, which makes it harder to follow without the spaces. So, but yeah, I think you got it right there. But basically, okay, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. So now I have a better idea. So, all right. So let's just go and do it.
Yeah.
Well, let me pseudocode a little bit if that's okay. Is that fine? I don't want to.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right, so I'll pseudocode. So my idea then would be for the number of rows would be like to create an array for each row, and then loop through the string and using the index to push the current letter to the appropriate array, and then I would join the arrays. Again, this is like brute force. I'm just like, it doesn't necessarily have to be arrays. You could create 4 different strings.
Yeah, I think you're spot on in that it's not, doesn't have to be a complex data structure. You're just kind of, you won't be doing any insertions as far as I'm aware.
What do you mean by insertions?
Well, you'll just be piling on things. So either of those data, pretty much any of them could facilitate string or an array. Would be great. Right.
Array. I don't know. Array makes the most sense to me because I think of pushing, which is just way easier with an array. Than with the string. I mean, it's not that it's hard to like concat onto a string, but
yeah. I think
for some reason I think of arrays as easier.
Yeah, I think it's a good intuition.
Yeah. So all right. So const. What do we want to call this? Create diagonal string, and that is going to take in a string and an integer. I don't always like to, I don't know if like, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, right? Because knowing this is a mock interview scenario, but like I've always heard like make your variables very clearly named. And I know that str and int aren't necessarily super clearly named, but writing out string and integer is like a lot.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So create diagonal string and integer. All right, I'm gonna call it integer. I'm gonna call it rows. So then, let me think. How do I want to know that I've created? I can say, well, this is a little equals new array rows dot fill. Well, no, I don't want to do that. Dot map. And I think that's right. Implicitly return an array every time. An empty array.
I'd say log it out and see what you got if you're curious.
And sorry, I haven't used CodePen a ton. How do I just?
I think there is like a little console viewer. If not, you can literally just like open up the console. I think there is something at the bottom that says console. I want to say I think that, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, no, sorry. And then.
Oh, there it is. Perfect.
All right, so it's not necessarily. Where do I have Cree?
I think it was from earlier.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. So, all right. Return? I thought that the return would be implicit. Yeah, and then that's because I'm not. Why doesn't it like? Oh no, okay, it was just because it was. So it's not return. It's not returning. It just looks like. Hold on, let me put like something in it, just to see. I just want to see. Interesting. I know I can't do. I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I could just loop through it, but that just seems like a lot of extra.
I'd say just loop through it for now, and then we could always optimize later.
Yeah.
We can after the interview, we can talk a little bit about array initialization stuff. It's always a fun topic.
Yeah, I thought map
I think you're like 99% there.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if I can just do real quick. Sorry, I know this isn't. I'm optimizing early, but. Equals the whole that map. All right, I'm just gonna loop through. Does it just look like that? I'm really confused why this isn't.
Yeah, it could just be how they're just doing the string syntax. You know, that's just how they're stringifying your set of arrays.
Yeah, but even if I put something in them.
Yeah, I would. I also think. Let's see here.
There we go. All right.
Who knows? It may have been working this whole time. It wasn't showing it.
Right?
You know, it's like how long is it actually? Yeah.
Now I'm wondering maybe the map was working. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. That works. We're just gonna leave it as that for now. All right. So now I've got that. So then I'm gonna loop through my string. What am I doing? All right, so this is where I have to think about exactly. So for the first 4, it's obvious. I just push to the corresponding index, but then I have to like go back. I'm trying to just think real quick. So there's probably some. I have
a tip here in a little bit. If you kind of get you hit a wall, but I don't think you've hit a wall. But if you do, let me know. I've got a tip.
No, I haven't hit. I haven't hit a wall just yet. I am writing. I'm writing real quick on a notepad here, if that's fine.
Oh yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Just because it's off camera, right? So it's not that I'm cheating, but it's like you don't necessarily
Googling.
Yeah. So 0 to 3 is obvious, but then when I get to 4, it needs to start looping backwards. Then so it's like this direction and back and back. So I know it's probably something very basic. I'm just trying to think of what, like if it's, whether it's like, yeah, I always, I know I could probably figure it out, but in a time limit, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I'll give you a little hint just to kind of point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Is what I would do is think of it's like a matrix, right? You've got an array in an arrays, right? Arrays in a single array. Is to think of like, okay, where does the next letter need to be? Like, so for example, for the entire string, the first one's in 0, the first array, and it's gonna be in position 1. So like 0, 1. The next one's gonna be in 1, 0, or I guess it'd be 0, 0, and then it'd be 1, 0, and then it'd be 3, 0, and it'd be 4, 0. And then the next one's gonna be 3, 1,
right,
2, 1, 1, 1.
Right.
And then the next one is, so if you just kind of write out what those numbers are, you'll see a pattern that you should be able to kind of find a way of achieving that pattern.
I mean, my first thought is like 2 loops. One that's looping through 0 through 3 to always, but then it's going backwards, and that's where. Right. So it's like the first one 0, 0, then 1, 0, 2, 0. Or no, sorry, the other way around. 0, 0. It's always 0. The first one.
Yeah.
0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. And then I'm going back to 0, 2, 0, 1, 0, 0. 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, this is where I get again, I know I could probably figure it out, but in the moment, and this is like it doesn't, I don't see it right away. I know that's probably pretty simple, like 4 minus something, and then like absolute value potentially, right? I'm just like spitballing, like it's possible.
Yeah, I would say it's simpler than that. There's no like any of that. It's pretty much incrementing and decrementing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I 0, 1, 2, 3, then 2, 1, 0, then back up. But I'm trying to figure out how to, if I'm looping through the string, I'm trying to figure out how to. Well, yeah, I mean, I have like a complicated way of doing it, like in my head, but I don't love it.
Well, you want to like pseudocode it out, or at least kind of brainstorm a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I get
like if we don't get it, we don't get it, because I mean, part of this is the fun part. This is the interesting, like back to kind of thinking it through. So like, this itself is the good stuff.
I guess my thought is, all right, so like as I'm looping through, I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to go to 3. And then but once I get to 3, I want to start going from 3 down to 0. And then go back until I've hit the string length. Going from 0 to 3 is obvious. It's always going to be what's equal to I, right? I can use I as like but then once I'm back up to 4, once I becomes 4, I'm going from 3 down. And so, well, I'm not, it's actually going to be like 2 down to 0, right? It's going to be more like that. But once I'm at 4, I'm going down. And my first thought was that I would have something checking for if it's equal to 0, we're going to be going up and have like, I would have like another variable, but like, I don't know, direction, not equal, let direction equal like true or false. That's like a Boolean. If it's true, I'm going up. If it's false, I'm going down. Just spitballing. I'm sure there's a better name for it than that. And
that is a very accurate spitball.
Okay. And then when I know when I get to 4, I'm going to change direction. And when I'm back to 0, I'm going to change it back again. And just go back and forth like that.
So now you kind of are on the right track there. How do you flip back and forth in a loop?
I mean, I could just have another variable, but I could also there's different ways to do it, right? I suppose there's not like one way. My first thought was I would actually just have like another variable that is not I, that I'm actually using to mark like which array. That was J with like array, my array index that is 0, and then that is where I go up and down 0 to 3 and then back down, and that's actually what I'm changing. And I just tells me when to stop when I've hit the string length. I don't necessarily know off the top of my head how to go up and down in a loop. I know I can change I, but I want to stop when I get to the string length. So that I is my marker for that.
You're like flirting with it right now. I would say, I'll give you this just because you're already like on such a roll here. I would just say maybe direction instead of being true or false.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe make it a positive or -1, and so that way it allows you can maybe multiply it times 1 to move one direction, or multiply it times another, or you can use that negativeness of that direction to actually drive the ping pong bounce. I don't want to say too much, but that would be something to consider.
I'm not sure I'm following. I understand. I basically understand what you're saying.
Because basically you're going down or you're going up, right?
Right.
So if you're going down, you want to increment.
Right.
And if you're going up, you want it to decrement by 1 as you go up.
If you're talking about like the rows, right?
Yeah. So what you could use is the direction, meaning, hey, I'm going up or I'm going down. If you're going up, you want it to be negative and just decrement the row index that you're on.
Right.
I think I may have made things worse.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I think I would just say 67 is great. I wouldn't necessarily worry about changing 67. 67 is fine. Okay. Use other ways of doing ping pong other than trying to tweak the loop. I would just say use like 64 is probably the way I would modify the direction. I think on 70, you just want to check if it's at the end, not necessarily having to do the modulus. You could probably just say if it's equal to the number of rows.
Well, I is going to be, the rows is 4. I'm going away where I have like an array index.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're doing the I comparison.
Yeah, because if I mess with I, I'm not sure how I'm going to, like, if I'm going up and down with I, I'll never get to the string length, which is, I mean, maybe there's some other way I'm not familiar with, right?
Oh yeah, I guess I'm thinking if you're tracking what array you're on, you could say, hey, if I'm on the last array. But anyway, yeah, you're doing a different way. I see what you're doing now. Yeah, got it.
Oh, so you're saying like, well, the last array, I'm going to get to the last array and then I'm going to come back from it. And I have to go, yeah, never mind. All right, I'm just going to keep going the way I'm going.
Yeah. If you're tracking on what you're doing, then keep it up.
Cool. Right. That's direction. And then, what would I call it? Row holder. Row holder 0 I push string. Wait, not I. Array index string I. Then trying to think of the best way to do this. I don't know if you can. I think there's a way, isn't there?
I would just log out what you have now, just to see what you got, just to give yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think you're making good progress here, and I think it'd be good to kind of showcase what you got.
So. Push.
Yeah, what's your array index at any given point? Maybe you could log out on 74 what your array index is, just to say, hey, what is this?
One. Right, I'm pushing directly. Sorry. So I'm getting to 4 and I don't want to get to 4 because starting at 0, I should be starting, but that takes even to -1. Still gets me to 4. Because I know, all right, so array index starts at 0, I add The first time I'm just adding 0, which is fine, but I want to get up to 3. Oh, i's never coming down to 0. All right, duh. Array index. Okay, array index equals 0, directions 1. That's part of the problem.
And I think you could clean up 71 and also use array index to say, hey, if array index equal.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now
just so you just use the same comparison, you know, comparator.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. Then I think I can do this array index. So that's going to take me. Do I need to do this check after? Hold on. So I can just walk through and say, okay, so I go through them at 0. I add 1. But I want to start at 0, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, maybe you put 74 at the end of the loop.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll also catch that getting to 4 business.
Yep. Then do I want to do array index -1 here?
Well,
AP almost.
that's pretty. I mean, that's a pretty interesting start, though. I mean, looking at that, you know.
Yeah. So it's going JP more, but then there it stops, and I need it to.
Oh yeah, basically, the R needs to be
right. Yeah. So. Does it need to be array index? JP Morgan is hiring. Okay. So now I'm just trying to figure. I think that's right. Hold on.
Remember, this one's janky.
Yeah, this one's good point. Let me do the 3 so I can get a better look. JP. There we go. All right. Mon. Oh yeah, that's right. That is right. I think it's working. So then I just need to. Okay. So then I just need to turn it all into one string.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's array methods that I think there is, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. An array method that I can't remember the word for it, but basically like reduces the inner arrays into like one. It like puts it all into one array, and then you can join off of that. I'm just trying to think. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the.
Yeah. So I mean, there's like 50 ways you could do this. I mean, one is you mentioned it, doing reduce just to reduce them down. Yep. And that's one approach. Others, you could just say, hey, it's I just want to, like, for example, the arrays, to actually get the arrays down to single sentences is dot join, right? And then to actually merge them, you could just say, hey, I have a single string. I'm just going to loop through these. I mean, no need to be too crazy there. So you could just loop through the matrix. You get 3 rows, and for each row, you loop through them, and you don't loop through them. You just do a dot join and then push it to a string, an output string or something like that. I mean, you could do something pretty simple. No need to get too crazy.
Let's results. Empty string. I could really be using those results to potentially like this whole time, but I think it's easier just for me to just do is less than what row length plus. Oh, again, it's just rows, right? And then row results plus equals row holder I dot join
Nice. Copy that string and let's compare it to our final one, just our test one, just to make sure we can.
Yeah, I can just do a quick.
You might need to do the triple equal there.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, nice. So real quick, we'll kind of land the plane on this portion. Thanks for sticking with it. I know it was tricky. What would be your, if you were to spend a couple days cleaning this up, what would be your kind of like first couple things you're like, this looks nasty, I know this needs to be cleaned up?
Sure. So I don't love this, right? I think there's a way to create an array and then fill it with arrays in one go. I know you can't do dot fill array because it'll do the same array each time. It like whatever you feed into fill,
it's like the same reference.
Exactly, that's the same. So but I would do like dot map and just figure out. Well, like actually, that map may have been working right.
That may have been that may have been better than exactly.
Yeah. So that's one thing I would do. I would clean that up. I don't love all of this. It's kind of ugly, and I'm sure there's a better way to do it. But off the top of my head, like I don't know what it is right now. I just know that there's probably a better way. And then, well. I also may not use the array index method of doing that. I'm wondering if there's like, instead of array index, if I can just concat a string in the like while I'm going through. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but that's something I would look into and consider. And then finally, also this, like there's probably a much cleaner way of using reduce.
Yeah.
To do it that way.
Yeah. Those are the kind of points I would point out too. And when we're done here, I'll just do one more. There's one more tiny little piece of this, and then we can kind of do debriefing. I'll show you my solution. And again, just like if you had all day, of course, it would probably be totally different. But yeah, that was super useful and super valuable to make it to kind of like also, because again, you've had experience doing more than just doing front end stuff. You've also kind of dabbled in some of the back stuff. You really enjoy that side of it. Let me send you a link. We'll spend just 4 or 5 minutes on this, but I'd like to just give credit where credit's due. Where if you've had kind of good experience with this, you've had some good. Let me see this real quick. Let's do. To just do a little bit of overall system design stuff. And again, this is like super basic. whatever you have is a win. I'll put this in the Zoom. And what I have like a project coming up where I'm going to do a little bit of a basic a chat experience.
Real quick, it says I need access.
Oh yeah, let me click approve. Give me 1 second. Thank you for interrupting me there. We'd have been sitting here, you'd be like, well, I wish I could. Give me 1 second. There it is. It's like it takes nation waiting on it. It takes forever. There it is. Boom.
All right.
Okay. Enjoy. Okay, so I'm building a little chat experience, and I'll go ahead and just put the prompt in here so that way you have it. And I don't want you to, you don't have to spend all day on this. We can keep it quick. But basically, wow, do that. Basically, I kind of just have this basic chat. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a basic messaging back and forth. But I also want an admin dashboard to be able to view metrics and manage users, those kind of things. So you can think of this as like a very primitive, like WhatsApp or Messenger, or you pick your messaging app of choice, but pretty basic here. I am 10,000 daily active users is probably like a millionth of like WhatsApp, but wanted to at least, it doesn't have 0 users. So what I'd like you to do is kind of like maybe brainstorm with me, and you can use this or you could just talk through it. So whatever, up to you. Kind of how you would kind of maybe build that out. You've kind of had some experience with SQL, kind of like what tables would you maybe have, and like at a very rough level, like what would that stack look like, and just kind of what your preference, because if you had to do this on your own personal project, what your recommendations would be.
Gotcha. All right. So
let me share my screen so it's on the recording.
Yeah. Okay. So a chat platform is going to support text, video, images. So I guess I'll start up with like the tables.
Yeah.
And the data, right? So database tables. I'm going to need probably a users table, maybe a chat rooms table, probably users, chat rooms, admin. I'm going to need something, probably something to keep track of, like password hashes. Although that potentially would just go with the users table, but
what's in?
Go ahead.
What's in chat rooms? Is that just like the messages that goes in there, or is that just like the actual groups of?
Well, it could be. That's a good. Yeah, I mean, I was assuming that chat rooms would be one, the names of the rooms, and then who's potentially in the room, but like you might want to have like chat rooms that are password protected, or like only for specific people. Like if you have like, it depends. I guess it depends on how complex this platform.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I don't know though, like if you necessarily want to like save every single text, video, and image that's shared. That would though, I would assume like if you are saving them, some sort of messages table that has like the user that said it, what the message was, which chat room it belongs to. Chat rooms would just be like, the name of the chat room, the users that are in the chat room, potentially, the access, whether it's something password protected or only for a certain list of users. users would just be like, I'm assuming like username, maybe their email, password hash, profile pic maybe, and admin would be username, email. I guess, I mean, you could have like an admin Boolean on users potentially.
Yeah. So what do you kind of see is like the stack looking like? I mean, these tables look great. I mean, I think this kind of sums up kind of the key ones. What would be, you said SQL, do you have like a preference as far as like type of, like platform, or what kind of back-end system and table management and those kind of things?
So that, I mean, like system design is not something that we get too heavy into the boot camp. I'm kind of like off the record, interview moment here, right? System design is not something we really get into in the boot camp. So in terms of like, which stack to choose, especially when it comes to backend, I'm not like 100% sure what would be the best. My thought for something like this would be SQL would be great, but then SQL, if you're doing video and images, like you'd have to have someplace else to store them and like refer to them in SQL, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I don't want to kind of drag you through like the areas that you haven't been, but this is useful for me to kind of get a track of kind of where you are there. And I think one last kind of question, then we can kind of do a debrief, because this has already been super interesting kind of seeing you break this down, is obviously you have done some front end stuff. Do you have a preference as far as like frameworks and have kind of opinions about like how you might set up a project like this, like a little chat?
In terms of like a system design,
or even just like, hey, I would use React versus those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is entirely with React. Yeah. So I would choose React because that's what I'm familiar with. I have some familiarity with Vue, but that's about the extent of it. I might use GraphQL to connect the front end to the back end on this one, but not necessarily, because I don't know. I know GraphQL is great if you've got like a ton of APIs that you're trying to pull from, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to get that complicated with this one, the number of APIs. And so GraphQL might not be necessary to simplify all of that. But I for sure, like React is what I'm most used to. Would I use Tailwind or Material UI or that's kind of like a subjective preference thing for me. I don't know which would be best for a chat room system, but
yeah. Well, awesome. Well, here's what we're gonna do is this is we're about to run out of time again. This is good though. We're getting some good stuff. I'll reboot it and we'll just do a little debrief. First of all, how did you feel? What did you think were some strong points? What did you think were some weak points?
Well, I'm very self-deprecating, so for me, it was all weak points in terms of my performance. I thought I was decent with the JavaScript. Like, I don't think I'm terrible with JavaScript. I think I'm pretty good, but I needed a lot of hints to get through the problem, which I don't think was great. I don't love algos. Like, I prefer real-world coding challenges. Yeah. I'm just not passionate about algos. Like, I really like, I look at them, but they're just not they're not my specific passion. And so I always struggle a bit with them, especially when I feel like the pressure's on. But I don't think I did terrible in that, but I don't think I think I could have been a lot stronger in getting to a solution without as many hints. And I also I was really even though I'm pretty good at JavaScript, like I still struggled with some of the syntax and methods that would have been available to me off the top of my head. I was having trouble coming up with some, but and then system design is just something I'm not like really well versed on. I can tell you, and this isn't an excuse, this is just like what I was told, and so I've just kind of gone forward with it. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. But I had somebody tell me early on when I started job searching that if a company is asking you system design for a junior entry-level role, they don't know what they're doing, is what he said.
Yeah.
And so I've really avoided studying system design. So it's just not something that I'm good at. So I know I didn't do very well there at all.
Well, I want to, thanks again for sticking it out. It's tough. It's just like, no matter what we do, it's always tough. I want to, I think I'll give you my feedback because, I would definitely say like mid-level front-end engineer would be pretty appropriate. Like you're familiar with JavaScript. There wasn't like, hey, what's a variable? Those kind of things. Yeah. And so that's really great. We didn't do React stuff. I've no doubt if we did, you would have flown through it, which is why I didn't do it. Because I didn't want to, how do you do state? It's like, okay, well, yeah. So I knew you were going to be fine with that. The algorithm stuff is a little tricky. That one is a tricky one. I would definitely say like to solve it like boom, boom, boom was pretty unrealistic. But it was a great seeing your thought process. And I definitely I did give you some hints of those kind of things, but I felt like you were on board with, you had a good understanding of like, okay, this is a bunch of arrays, matrices, I'm going to push this in here, and you had a good idea about how to doing loops, stuff like that. You typed that out real quick. It wasn't like, oh, what's this? So you have a really good, you'd spent enough time in JavaScript to be familiar with that stuff. In its second year, we'll look at the actual like a code solution, but it's got some cleanups there, but you got to the answer, which is like most people probably wouldn't, especially if we did do system design. I know is a bit of a stretch, and it is true that I think for junior level roles, that's probably not going to happen. But what I would definitely recommend, just as a career standpoint, is never call yourself a junior developer, because the junior developers aren't being hired right now. So don't call yourself that.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're a mid-level developer, you've got a ton of years writing JavaScript, and you're able to talk back and forth, very articulate about what the question was, your understanding of it. If you had gaps, like it wasn't awkward, you just asked the questions, and it was really great. And to me, that's more indicative of the quality of a developer than like, hey, he knows all the algorithm stuff. So to me, it's like if you had aced the algorithm, but he'd been quiet and not fun to work with, I would have been like, eesh, like that's not... Yeah. So the fact that you were like, it was fun to work with back and forth, to me, that's more impressive than anything else. So I definitely say that's fine. The system design stuff is a bit of, there's a bunch of freebies, I think, regardless if it's someone by ask, and especially if you were to say full stack, or if you're going to think more like, hey, I'm maybe going to do more project level stuff, those kind of things are very useful to at least be able to be articulate in meetings and be able to think about those things, to be like, okay, like the videos and images, maybe that's in blob storage. That's a, S3 bucket. Just say S3 blob storage or something, and people are like, oh, okay, boom. They're not going to ask anymore, and you've proven sufficiency. And hey, I'm just going to reference those in my message table, those kind of things. Maybe have a couple of like ballpark, like, again, this is like 1 hour. You could probably get where you want to go as far as like, hey, this type of database is known for this, so I'm probably going to use this, that kind of thing. A good safe bet is say Postgres, kind of thing. Yeah. It's very scalable. Everyone loves it. And it's like, hey, well, how do you speed things up? You could there's like 5 caching mechanisms, very common. And you could just if you had any of that stuff, you would all of a sudden it would just leaps and bounds. I don't think anyone wouldn't hire you based on that. But if you could ace it, it could be an extra 30 grand a year. So it's like, freebie, if you can mention it at least in your discussions. I think you had the understanding of kind of, I'm sure you could articulate how to do front end stuff, but spreading your wings a little bit and say, no, at least about, JavaScript backends, those kind of things. Just say, hey, I'm not a backend guy necessarily, but I love JavaScript, so I'm probably gonna use Express or something like that to do my backend stuff. And just say, that's like the best of both worlds. Is you're not claiming expertise, but you're a JavaScript guy, and you at least connect the dots that this is JavaScript. So I'm going to do Node backend for this stuff, and it's just a way of claiming, like getting the best of both worlds. So you show what you do know, but you're not claiming more. So those are all things that, like, just a day of Wikipedia jumping around, like what are the common ones? What do people typically say? Those kind of things. Or watching a YouTube video on system design. Again, it is surprising, because in this market where everyone's just demanding a little bit more people are asking those questions, because they're just trying to separate out, the wheat and the chaff, that kind of thing. So it's a way of standing out and saying, hey, I'm a good long-term bet. I'm not just an entry-level guy. So those are some recommendations there. Yeah, but I think overall, I would definitely say you're way ahead of most as far as like you're not an entry-level person.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's huge. So let me just kind of, again, I could talk about JavaScript stuff all day, but this is mine, and I'll actually share this repo with you. I have like 100 LeetCode solutions in TypeScript and JavaScript and Python and some form in Python, and you could just, again, because if you look up some of these, again, we could talk about the value of algorithms, if it's actually worth the doing or not, but increasingly it's being used as a way of just filtering down excessively active job candidates. So if they have 100 candidates, they just make it a little bit more difficult. And so it's I say free, it's tiring, but it's not complex how to do this. You just got to grind on it. But here's my solution. And to your point, that's how I did it, to do the mapping. And the trick is to wrap it inside the spread operator there.
Yeah.
So that, otherwise, I think it just creates empty elements, and you can't map over empty elements, I don't think.
Gotcha.
So
That's
if
a good question. I swear I feel like I've seen something where you don't spread it in, and that you can just write off of it, say fill, but I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong.
Let me, anyway, let me just do a real basic thing here. And again, we could get really into the weeds here, but let me just do, of course, number rows. So we'll just put an arbitrary number here. So, and if we look at matrix, right? So we know this works, but if we do, and we don't put the spread on there, I think what it does is it can't map over, you can't do a map over a new array. If we go matrix, because it's empties, because you can't map over. It's interesting, like you can't map over nothings. So, but by doing the spread operator, you can then do an operator on it. I don't know that I'm not super fresh on the specifics of that, but I remember needing to do that to make it work. So, again, that's neither here nor there, but that's basically a kind of a clean. You were probably going to get there anyway, but this does have a couple of those odds and ends, like the reduce that you were talking about. Being able to just kind of do that, that's kind of nice. And the up or down is kind of there.
Matrix I plus or minus up or down. And then you just say number of rows, -1. Or number of rows, sorry. Number of -1, right?
Yeah, and this I think this is your array index or something you called it. So it's the same kind of idea there that you're pushing into that. And then you can kind of, but yeah, that's you got there. And I think the niceties are just that, niceties, especially like we're not asking for like senior level like expertise. You more than sufficiently checked all the boxes. I think the sad reality, and this is kind of we'll end on this point. Algorithms are so frustrating because, I'm sure both of us could write beautiful applications and not once do one of these algorithms. Right. But they are very highly valued in for a lot of interviews. There's just like I went through when I was kind of looking for job stuff, I probably did 40, 50 of these in interviews, So whether it should be important or not, aside, it's extremely important to interviewers. It's just a useful way of saying, hey, is this person like put in the time, It's like a degree. People use it as just a way to filter. So this is a way of filtering for better or worse. So one approach is to just say, hey, like if they're asking for algorithms, they're probably not a good fit, which I've known some people who have said that and basically said, hey, if they're asking for this, basically walk out, because what does this have to do? But there's a lot of great companies, one of which I work for, that ask for it, and it doesn't mean they're not a great company. It just means it's just a way they use to filter through hundreds of candidates. So
I mean, I from an HR perspective, it's a clean, objective way to filter, and you can, claim at least there's no bias in this filtering method.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand, and very good companies, like you said, are gonna have very good HR departments. So yeah, I get it. But it like you said, you're potentially never going to use it in the real world. So I'm not saying I'm like anti-algorithms. I will do them, and I need to study them more. But they're just not my passion. So I don't think it's anybody's. I mean, maybe some people's passion, but if it's any consolation, I hate this. I hated this. I absolutely hated this. But I will say, just as much as I hated it, being able to sit in an interview, and I've the stars align sometimes for you sometimes, and like you just reviewed one, you're really fresh on it. They ask about it, and you're like, oh, let me think about it. Yeah.
This is stuff. Okay, I've got an idea. This may be totally wrong, and you're like, oh, and you're just, and they're like, whoa, man, you're so good, and it's just like, boom, you zoom to the head of the hiring process, and everyone's like, wow, this guy's awesome. So the value of that, I think, is worth it. Obviously, LeetCode is pretty much defended for that, and I would say I've got, and I'll show you my repo real quick, not to push for my stuff, but just because if you're in JS, this has got however many solutions. This has got like probably the most frequent 100 at least.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer. Maybe you don't type them out. You don't try and memorize these, but you spend enough time being like, okay, if it is palindrome, like it's that. So like, boom, there you go. That's it. Some of these are like, ooh, that's a little tricky, but there's nuggets in here to say, hey, maybe I don't need to. It's not like some of these are like just a mess, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't memorize the solution, but you do learn from some tricks there. So that way you can use it in a pinch. So I would say that's a good way of saying, I think if you were explicitly going for a senior role, I would say memorize the top 100, but you're not. So just being enough familiar with these that if you do get in a pinch, you could gives you a bit of an advantage where you're like, okay, I at least understand the problem. Like today, I at least know what they're asking. That's a huge unfair advantage. Last thing I'll add, and then I'll let you go. I know I've been ranting here, but typically this is just another trick for this. And again, my recommendation is that you push for those higher level roles because there's less competition at the top. Mm-hmm. The higher up you go, especially if you're thinking more, hey, I'm thinking more as a project guy or a solutions guy, or I'm thinking more of design, the more abstract, the more they're going to want these kind of things. It's very easy. You can, especially if you're on a time limit, they got 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can kill the first 8 minutes just saying, basically clarifying questions. Yeah. It's just killed, because then you're going to run out of time. And they're like, well, he was asking good stuff till the very end. Like, we assume he could have solved this. You can basically spend 8 minutes saying, okay, interesting. Well, how do you think this would work? That kind of thing. So basically be like, so how many images? How big are these images? Oh, storage is an issue. Okay, interesting. So what do you want the admin dashboard to look like? How many graphs? Time series data? Interesting. And you could basically soak up a lot of time, as well as, honest to goodness, you are collecting some, especially as they're saying it, you're saying, oh, interesting, time series data. Okay, time series data. Time series data. You clarify a bunch of questions, and then it's basically like, okay, finding like a reasonable way of like checking those boxes, because they're going to give you like, okay, we want to know if you can ballpark think about the right system based on this. And if you can do clarifying questions, you're going to be ahead of 80% who jump in and just say, okay, well, what do I know? Okay, I know databases, so let's do tables, those kind of things. Because it could be that, hey, one of the clarifying questions is, hey, do we care about like rooms, those kind of things? And boom, you don't even have to think about this, because they may say it's not a scope, in which case you get bonus points. It's out of scope, and you don't have to do the work. So if you start with clarifying questions, it's just an unfair advantage of like avoiding real work while looking smart, because it looks like, well, this guy's really serious about getting the requirements spot on, Right. I knew a guy who said, hey, this guy jumped right in. He was a great answer, but because he jumped right in, we're gonna not give him an offer. So it's a free way of just standing out by just asking questions. So, okay. Not to rant on and on and on. This has been really great. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for reaching out and offering. You didn't even know me, and it was like really cool because it's the biggest. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like sound like, you know, complain too much because life is what it is, and nobody deserves anything. But like, it's been such a struggle not even getting interviews lately. Like I said, I interviewed. I'm in the middle of an interview. It's the only interview I've had in months. I haven't had any interviews since November, early November. I was doing decent in October, November, and then just done. No, nothing. So just getting this practice in and getting feedback has been like super valuable to me. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to send over your resume and stuff like that. I'm no expert, but it is good to get another eye on it just based on like what I've turned down a bunch of resumes. Yeah. And I've also known a bunch of people with lousy resumes that were great. So clearly the resume is not a good indicator, but to at least get in the room. If you're bombing in the room, okay, well, that's what this practice is for. But if you're not getting in the room, it's like, well, you could be the greatest person in the world, you know, then, and I'll actually, what I'll do is I'll email you. I've got your email now from the Google stuff or whatever. Right. I'll email you my resume so you can at least take a look at like, okay, mine hasn't gotten in the way. I'm not saying it's great, but it hasn't caused any problems for me. Right. And that way you can at least have some context of this is a useful, you know, this is a good place to start at least. Actually, let me do that right now before I forget.
Yeah, and then once I have your email, I think I already have it because when you approved me, I think I got it.
Yeah, I'll send. Yeah, exactly. So, and you'll have it now because I'll send this to you. But this is just, again, there are no silver bullets, but having at least say, hey, okay, this is how, if mine is vastly different from this, that could be an interesting place to start tuning things up. If it's pretty much identical to this, then maybe it's something else. But yeah, and I would definitely say don't use the word junior if you want to see the light of day.
I don't use it in my resume. I don't.
That's
have
good.
It
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.
And I'm certainly not saying like I think I might have like a LinkedIn post here or there where I mention junior role or something, but for the most part, I'm not.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, that's already a win there. I know some folks who are they're saying, hey, they're trying to help themselves out by setting the bar low, being like, hey, I'm just a junior, just like give me a chance, you know. Yeah. But people are like, I don't have time for throw sympathy, you know, hires. Like I need people who are gonna really move the needle. So like saying, hey, I'm the guy that moves the needle. Let's go. Let's crush it. So okay, I emailed you my resume. You can laugh along. But this has been super interesting. Actually, let me send you one more thing while I got you here. Sorry to keep just doing one more thing here. But I'll go ahead and send you the GitHub link to the solutions. And again, whether you use that to like just, you know, get inspiration and think through some stuff, or whether you actually use it to copy and paste the solution into your own leak code to get points, like whatever. Like it's just a good way of brainstorming. So I set that in Zoom so you can take a look.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. One, I a lot of times with these, I find poring over the solution, understanding it, does me way more help than just banging my head against the wall trying to solve it on my own. So I love having access to solutions in one spot like that. That's great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and give it a star. We're almost at 3 stars or whatever it is. Okay, well, yeah, thanks so much for your time, and I will at some point upload this video, I'll give you a link to it, and we can smile along. But this has been a ton of fun. Thanks for your patience with all this.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll send you my resume in just a second. So
awesome. Appreciate it. Well, thanks so much. See you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.